Not a bad day for a home opener. Good morning, everybody. The Nats at home for the first time in this 2026 season. Let me clear my throat. Be ready for the show. 105 first pitch. Not a bad setup for a home opener, right? I mean, a Friday afternoon. Get out of work early. Nice weather. Supposed to be much nicer than it was yesterday. 70s, maybe upper 70s. Some sun, hopefully. The two-time defending champion Dodgers are the opponent. Perfect setting for a party and a home opener day. By the way, I was looking this up. This will be the 22nd home opener since the team moved from Montreal back in 2005. First ever home opener against the Dodgers. That's never happened before. Of the previous 21 home openers, the Mets and Braves have been the opponent the most, 5 times each. The Marlins have been here 4 times for a home opener, and the Phillies 3 times. Arizona, Cincinnati, Pittsburgh, and yes, the Yankees in a much delayed home opener during COVID in 2020. The home opener didn't come until late July, but yeah, the Yankees were the home opener that particular year. They are the other teams, though, that have been a part of Nats home openers since the team came here in 2005. Never the Dodgers, though, until today. And the Dodgers, if you haven't followed it, they are a heavy, heavy favorite, like literally a 2-1 favorite to win a third straight World Series this year. They are off to a 4-2 start, but it has been a very slow start offensively for Shohei Ohtani. He's hitting just 167, and through 6 games, Max, not one RBI. Not one. Now, he did pitch once and was lights out in his only pitching start so far. The Nats are 3-3, but they've looked good so far. 2 of the 3 losses have come by 1 run, the last one in extra innings against Philadelphia. They've been very good offensively through the first 6 games. They are second in the National League in batting average, second in total hits, 4th in on-base percentage, 4th in OPS, and they've been productive offensively without James Wood hitting. He's batting just 111 with, get this, 12 strikeouts in 27 at-bats. First pitch, 105. First beers at the bullpen, probably an hour or 2 before that, I would imagine. The Caps missed out on a huge opportunity last night. Man, they had everybody that they needed to lose in front of them. They all lost pretty much. But they lost too. 7-3 on the road against the Devils. The Olympic hero, Jack Hughes, scored 2 goals and had 3 assists for New Jersey, a team behind the Caps in the standings. So the Caps remain 3 points out of the last wild card spot, 4 points behind the Islanders for third place in the Metropolitan Division. If they were to finish third in the division, they would automatically get a spot. But there are 3 other teams ahead of Washington chasing down the current playoff positioned teams, meaning the Caps not only have to, play really well over their final 6 games, like win 5 of them minimum, maybe all 6, but they need several teams in front of them to falter a little bit. But big missed chance, right, Max, for them last night to gain ground. I mean, I think they'd be sitting right now 1 point off the last wild card spot, and 2 points off third place in the division had they won. I would imagine you were a bit upset last night with the performance.
I mean, just a little. It's kind of the story of this team all year has been up and down, and now is really the time to lock in. This is really your playoff chance. Your playoff time starts now in April, so it is disappointing. I am glad that everybody else lost, so not too much ground was lost, but yeah, it gets that much harder and the mountain gets that much taller. So I'm not sure what the playoff odds are now.
You're a massive Caps fan. Were you into it last night, following the scores of the other games? Like, this is like that time of the year where
so that's
all you got to do in hockey is get in.
Yeah,
and anything can happen once you're in it.
That's the thing, man. Like, I was so focused on the game last night that like I can't dart my eyes around until I know that we've got it in hand, because that's how
okay.
because that's just hockey, you know?
Right.
So I wasn't really keeping track of the other games. I was more locked in to the Caps, but once it was 4-2 and they got that extra insurance goal, it
All right.
just, sucked the
Well,
wind
they
out of
play
me.
Buffalo at home tomorrow, and they beat Buffalo a few weeks ago on the road, and Buffalo's very good.
They're red hot this
in the
year.
East. Yeah.
If I had to pick a playoff team that wasn't the Caps, it'd be the Sabres this year.
Really?
Yeah, they're fun
to root for, or
to root for sure.
Why? Because it's been a while.
Because it's
them,
been
right?
a while, and the fan base deserves it. And Buffalo's just been through, their hockey community's been through so much that they definitely deserve it. But if I had to pick a team to win, Colorado Avalanche are just drubbing everyone still. So it's hard to pick against them.
Yeah, I mean, Colorado has, I think we talked about this recently. They got 108 points. They're going to win that President's Trophy for the regular season. They've been very, very good this year out west. All right, there's your hockey talk for the day. Let me just say, while I'm not a big Caps fan, like, diehard, I like when they're in the playoffs. It gives us something to talk about games-wise. And there's something of like a tradition of being somewhere doing a show for the draft, and a Caps playoff game is going on simultaneously. It feels like every year during the draft, the Caps are playing playoff games at the same time. Probably not this year. Several tweets and emails here in the opening segment to cover multiple topics. This from Ewags. Ewags writes, Kevin, relax on your Wizards April Fool's joke. Loosen up a little. It was hilarious. From Red 33, Kevin, calm down. They're just trying to entertain in other ways since they can't do it with basketball. It was a joke. Thank you for that, Ewags and Red 33. Both tweeted me, Max, prior to the team issuing its apology. I didn't say, just so you're clear, I didn't say that I had a major problem with it. I just said on the show yesterday, before they issued the apology, I just thought in context, the team being as bad as they've been for as long as they've been bad, and kind of just being lucky that people show up to their games. It was something that just, I said, felt off. Like, I wasn't personally really offended by it at all. I care more about next year and the team being good next year. I just thought it was going to fall on, kind of in that place that maybe was off-putting to people. And clearly it was, I mean, I actually wondered out loud with Max yesterday on the show. I'm like, I wonder if that guy was like a plant. Turns out he was. He was an actual plant. Like, they called this thing a skit in their apology. So I don't know. The whole thing scripted, played out like a skit, which really wasn't necessarily a factor in how people, were going to feel about it in the moment. And apparently just a lot of people did have a problem with it. So, I mean, it was enough people had enough of a problem with it that the team felt compelled to issue a public apology. I don't think that's the result they were looking for when they came up with the idea. And again, like I said yesterday, it wasn't that I was personally offended by it. I just kind of guessed that people would be, and that it was probably in context not the best thing for them to do. As it turns out, it wasn't the best thing for them to do, because I don't think they wanted to issue an apology about an April Fool's joke, but they did. This from Miles. Miles writes, Kevin, Tom's line about punishing the player by making him stay wasn't about DJ Swearinger. It was about Sua Cravens. It's so funny that you wrote that, Miles. And the reason I'm reading it is because Max said the same thing to me yesterday. I forget if it was on the air or off the air, but I said, I said, who was the player that Jay Gruden cut on Christmas Eve? And you said Sua Cravens. I'm like, I don't think it was Sua Cravens. But I looked it up. It was, in fact, DJ Swearinger. The team cut him on Christmas Eve 2018. He had gone on radio. I looked this up because I forgot the details of it. He had gone on radio and criticized defensive coordinator Greg Minuski a few days earlier, and that was the final nail in the coffin for him. He had been warned by Jay Gruden and others in the organization about criticizing the team and doing it publicly, which he had done prior to that. Jay's quote after he released Swearinger was, "We made it pretty clear that we try to keep our business within these walls, and we've had many a talk before about that. And unfortunately, he chose to go to the media again and talk about his displeasure with some of the calls." Swearinger said, "Jay just said it was the third time I've been in his office, and we're going to release you." I know Jay has told me and probably many others in recent years, getting rid of him was way overdue in that moment. I looked it up. Swearinger only played 2 more seasons and with 3 different teams and like maybe 14 total games. So his career was kind of over. He actually was not a bad player here when he was here. The Tom quote, if you're not familiar with it, but it was brought up by our emailer. Tom said, shortly after they cut Swearinger with me, he said, if they really wanted to punish DJ Swearinger, they would have made him stay, which, considering the organization in those days, was hilarious. By the way, speaking of Sua Cravens, and I was going to read this last week, and I just forgot to, but Sua Cravens was very active. I guess he is very active on social media. Remember, he was the second-round selection in 2016 after they selected Josh Doxson in the first round. And just a bust of first 2 picks. And there were a lot of red flags on Sua Cravens. Like, he had gone AWOL at USC for a time being and was a good player, but Jay Gruden had said about Cravens, and I don't know where he said this, but he said recently, you know what? I think it may have been with me.
I'm pretty sure it was.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure he actually said this with me. Sua Cravens was a player that we had a lot of different opinions on. I didn't want the guy at all. Yes, he did say this with me. Just because he didn't fit. He wasn't a safety. He played outside linebacker. We didn't, he's too little, not because he wasn't a good kid or a good player, just that there's nowhere to put him. Well, Sua Cravens read that and then responded to it with a rather lengthy tweet. He wrote, "I'd agree. When I was drafted, they told me I'd be playing safety at first, but when I arrived, I was thrown into the linebacker room as an inside linebacker, a position I had never played in my career before. So it felt like I had to relearn the game of football and made me kind of doubt my own ability as a player at times. Coming from USC and having a revolving door of systems and head coaches didn't help me develop as either a safety or a linebacker. I played 3 to 4 different positions at USC and just happened to have been good at all of them, but never really mastered one. By the time the league came, it felt like Washington was just spitballing what they'd want from me on a week-to-week basis. One week, I'm a true inside linebacker trying to get off double teams at 220 pounds, and the next, I'm basically playing safety and guarding wide receivers, tight ends, and slots, depending on the formation. I believe it's why I ended up dealing with so many injuries in my short NFL career. On top of the fact that I almost went blind from a concussion trying to play aggressively while being undersized. I never had issues with Jay Gruden in Washington. I liked him as a head coach and trusted him enough to actually cry in his office in private like a baby when I told him something doesn't feel right with my eye. I don't feel the same. Something's off. After my concussion before the 2017 season, I have a ton of regrets when it comes to my football career. My biggest is not staying at USC for my senior year, learning how to really play inside linebacker, and avoid getting drafted by Washington altogether. But I'm grateful for the opportunity and hope none of these kids in the future go through the same injuries I went through. And I am in no way offended by Jay's words. He and I have always kept it 100%, whether he liked it or not, and vice versa. It's a mutual respect on a situation that didn't work out in the end. Look, Jay, I've said this many times because people have told me this about Jay, including Scott McLuhan, who worked with Jay. A lot of people that were close with Jay in football said two things about him. One, he is a master designer of a pass offense. And two, he's a terrific evaluator of talent. Scott McLuhan said he was the most talented evaluator. He was the best talent evaluator of any head coach he had ever worked with. So his opinion on Sua Cravens was clearly different from everybody else's, including Bruce and, the front office at that time. And look, the front office was not very sharp, as we know, during those days. I will say this about that 2016 draft, though. I wanted them to draft Josh Doxson. Oops. Anyway, I saw that Sua Cravens thing from last week, and I meant to save it and read it. And thank you for reminding me of that, Miles on Sua Cravens. And then these two emails that had basically the same idea. From my guy Yale. Yale writes, Kevin, if next year's draft is as good as advertised, why shouldn't Peters be trying his best to load up on picks next year? Trading back from 7 or even from their third-round position might net more attractive picks in a deeper draft next year. And then I got this from Upper MC44, Upper Montgomery County, maybe. Haven't heard you talk a lot about the 2027 draft. Yes, and you're not going to hear me talk a lot about the 2027 draft. We will be wrong 66% of the time, 2 out of 3 times talking about this draft. But anyway, Upper MC44 continues. It's been called the deepest in a long time. How many picks do we have? And can Peters add to it with picks in this draft or even trading somebody like Daron Payne? And are you telling me that the Chargers wouldn't have given up a 5th or 6th rounder next year for our center? Seems like something Howie Roseman would have pulled off. So, real quickly, next year's draft, Washington has all 7 of their selections. 1st, 2nd, 3rd, 4th, 5th, 6th, and 7th rounds have all 7 of them. So, look, guys, Yale, Upper MC 44. For starters, if next year's draft is supposed to be so great, and I have read some of the same things that you guys have read, that next year's draft on paper is supposed to be much better than this year's draft and one of the, best and deepest in years. Don't you think other teams know that? So it's not like you're going to, trade your 3rd rounder in this draft for, 2 2s next year or a 2nd rounder next year. If teams know that, if other teams know that too. But here's the other thing too that's even more, I think, more relevant. And that is, do you know that this time last year, the 2026 draft was being talked about in the same way that the 2027 draft is being talked about now, especially with quarterbacks? This time last year, it was like Cam Ward, just be careful. If you need a quarterback, just wait for 2026. Cade Klubnik, Arch Manning, Nussmeier, Sellers, the list just went on and on. By the way, who wasn't on any of those lists? Fernando Mendoza or Ty Simpson. None of those guys. There was a big, got to wait for Arch, got to wait for Nussmeier, got to wait for Klubnik. Who am I missing from that? There are like 5 or 6 of them. Lenore Sellers from South Carolina, got to wait for him. I mean, and here we are a year later, and one quarterback may go in the 1st round. It looks like Ty Simpson's slipping, as of today. The odds on him are actually more or better for him to go early in the second round than even in the first round. So it may be one quarterback. And neither one of those two quarterbacks, neither one of them were among the quarterbacks mentioned in the very deep, very exciting 2026 draft, especially when it comes to quarterbacks. It's just the way it is, man. Football, impossible. Like I think I said this before free agency. I mean, you would have had to have your head examined if you had said back in August that the number one free agent quarterback when we get to March is going to be Malik Willis. But he was. And this time next year, who the hell knows what the draft will look like. And in terms of the players that they're projecting right now next year, you know, some of those same names. I mean, you're seeing Klubnik, you're seeing Arch again, you're seeing Sellers again. And there will be more to come between now and next year. Yeah, I don't. If next year's draft really is super deep and there's a feeling that, you know, it's just going to be, even if it's not what they end up thinking it's going to be, it's still going to be better than this year, then everybody knows that, and it's going to be hard to accumulate picks. Now, the one thing that Upper MC 44 you mentioned, I think is going to continue to be the offseason number one, you know, mystery question mark, and that is Tyler Biotish. Why did they cut him? Was there any interest? Did they really explore it? I can't imagine that Adam Peters didn't explore a potential trade before he released him. But really, to me, that is not as significant as will we ever find out the reason why. They weren't talking, you know, earlier this week in Phoenix when asked about it. In fact, you know, Peters basically said, we're not going to talk about the reasons why. Wish him the best of luck. I'd like to know. We'll find out at some point. I have a feeling it's a combination of three things. It is that the performance was good, but it wasn't great. And number two would be it may not be the right kind of center for what they're going to do with Blau. And then thirdly, and Ben and I think, talked about this the other day or recently, is that perhaps they did want to keep him, but at a lower number, and he wasn't willing to stay at a lower number. And that was that. You know, Peters saw value, but at a certain number. And we've seen that unless he's absolutely smitten with a player like Kinlaw last year, or maybe like Oweh this year, that, you know, he's got his number and he's pretty disciplined around that number. And there was no more guaranteed money left on the deal for Biotish. They didn't owe him anything. So it was restructure and stay, or we'll try to trade you or release you. And he decided to move on. Now, when you're doing that, you should have a solid, you know, plan A, plan B. And it feels like Allegretti and Julian Good-Jones is more like a plan C. I think Tyler Linderbaum may have been plan A, but the money went nuts on him. I don't know what plan B was. Maybe that was the plan. You know, there was the Cushenberry guy from Tennessee, some talk around maybe there was some interest there until he failed his physical. Who knows? All right. There was something that happened last night that JJ Redick's going to really feel the brunt of for a long time. I'll explain when we come back. Kevin Sheehan Show, the Team 980 and the team980.com.
We'll do an MRI tomorrow, left hamstring. We'll know more tomorrow. It was discussed at halftime. Thought we'd give those guys about 6 minutes, and then we were going to, if we didn't cut into the lead, we were going to pull them. And obviously it was around that time that I don't remember the exact time, but that happened. We checked him out. He got work done. He was cleared. I mean, we're not going to put a player at risk. Those things happen.
Yeah, except you did put a player at risk last night, and it could be a devastating injury for the Los Angeles Lakers, who before last night's 139-96 loss to Oklahoma City, they had won literally 4 in a row and 13 of their last 14 and had risen all the way up to the number 3 spot in the Western Conference. Yeah, the Lakers have actually been playing great basketball. Luka's been playing great. Luka right now, the 3rd pick in the MVP odds race after SGA and Victor Wembanyama. So what happened last night was, first of all, the Lakers got absolutely blown out. 139-96. For context, that 43-point loss to the Oklahoma City Thunder is the worst margin of defeat for a team with 50 wins since Oklahoma City did it to Dallas 2 years ago. They won by 49 in a game over the Mavericks in the regular season. But those are the only two. Those are the top 2 all-time margins of defeats for a team with 50 wins. The Lakers are 50-27 after last night's loss. Here's the problem that JJ Redick has, is that Luka Doncic, first of all, has had some hamstring issues recently. And then in the first half, a first half that ended, listen to the score. Oklahoma City had a 31-point lead at halftime. The score was 82-51. They gave up 82 in the first half. They were down 31 points. And in the first half, Luka appeared to tweak the hamstring that's been bothering him. And yet they put him back into the game to start the second half in a game that was over. Now, it is the NBA. And when I hear JJ Redick say, we're just going to put him in for a few minutes to see if we could, make a run to get the lead back, to get the deficit down to a workable number. I get that, but this is one of those where is the juice worth the squeeze? Your best player has had some issues with the hamstring to begin with. And then in the first half, he appears to tweak it. And he's got a little bit of an issue there. And then down 31, you're going to put him out there in a game that just is not going to happen. You're not playing a bad team that just got lucky in the first half. You're playing the best team in the league, arguably, who has absolutely run you out of the building in the first half of the game. That is a, Luka, you tweaked it again. You're not going out there. That's a no-brainer. And if you read through the quotes, the medical, cleared him. He was cleared. Oh, fine. That doesn't mean you play him in a game in which you're down 31 at halftime. He's out there in the third quarter on a bad hamstring in a game which, by the way, they immediately went down by like 37-38. It is his job to manage that situation. That game is lost. It's over. And you've got a player, your best player, who's kind of been dealing with this for a few weeks anyway, and then re-injured it in the first half. And you're going to put him out there in a game like that? That is really, his tone was measured, and they weren't on the attack necessarily. He was asked about it a couple of times. Cleared medical. Yeah, we just wanted to see if something happened in the first 6 minutes. No. Once he re-injured it or tweaked it, as it was described in the first half, my best player, who has carried me more than anybody else to 50 wins and a 3 seed at this point. I am not putting him at risk. And it's not like it's a sprained finger. It's a hamstring. Everybody understands those things, soft tissue. If it's severe, it could be the rest of the season. He's going to get an MRI today. That will be one of those, man. If you're a Lakers fan or if you're doing sports talk in LA today, you have to be killing JJ Redick for that decision. I mean, look, that's a big game, right? You're playing the Oklahoma City Thunder. You actually, can't catch them for the 2 seed. That's over. They've already clinched the 2 seed. But you are trying to stay ahead of Denver, who's in the 4 spot and just a game behind. You want to keep that 3 seed. You'd rather face, Minnesota and then maybe San Antonio before OKC, whatever. But you can't do anything without Luka. I'm not even the biggest Luka fan, but I recognize you're not doing anything without Luka Doncic being on the floor and healthy. That's going to be a decision. I'm actually surprised, maybe. It might be me here, and I could be missing something. I'm surprised, like on SportsCenter last night, I didn't see more of an outrage over the decision to have him in the game in the second half. This is a dude, just so you know, heading into the game last night. Now, he actually had to serve a suspension for the game that they had on Monday night because, of course, Luka had exceeded the technical foul limit because he is a serial complainer. He may be all-time in terms of complaining to officiating. It was so bad during those playoffs in which they got to the finals against the Celtics. They kept winning, until the finals. But, I was in here talking about it. It was it was terrible to watch because he does it on the dumbest of missed calls, he thinks. And then you see the replay and it's like, dude, you're complaining about something they were 100% right about. And meantime, they're playing 5-on-4 on the other end because you stay down to argue and instead of getting back on defense. But just so you know, prior to the injury, in the month of March, Luka Doncic averaged 37.5 points per game. He had a game in which he scored 44. He had a game in which he scored 51. He had a game in which he scored 40. He had a game in which he scored 60. He had 43, 41, and 42 in 3 consecutive games before taking the floor last night. Again, he got suspended for the game that they had on Monday night. That was against, by the way, yes, your Washington Wizards, right? Wasn't he out for the Wizards game the other night? Yes. Look at the fewest number of points during the month of March that he scored in the game, Max. Let me just see how many games there were that they played. 3, 6, 9, 12, 15, 16 games in March the Lakers played. He had 3 games less than 30. That's it. And in those games, he went for 28, 27, and 27. Every other game was 30 or more. And 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 of them were 35 or more. 7 of them were 40 or more. Yeah, that's not a team that's going to win, even a game more likely than not in a best of 7 without Luka. That's crazy that he put him out there in a game like that. They got absolutely destroyed early in that game. It was 44-21 at the end of the first quarter. And again, 82-51 at halftime. And you got a guy that's limping around and you're going to put him back out there in the third quarter? Good God. That's insane. It reminds me, and maybe some of you, obviously not the same situation, But it's like, what was Jaden doing in the game at the end of the Seattle game? That game had 0% chance of becoming competitive with him or without him. And if you were going to keep him in the game, it should have been just to hand the ball off, not to run an RPO on the goal line on a condensed field. That's going to be interesting, man. What if Luka's lost for a significant period of time going into the postseason? That is an all-time coaching blunder. It seems to me it is. I could be missing something here. I was watching some of this last night. I was surprised that there wasn't more outrage in JJ Redick's direction. All right, when we come back, how many first-round picks this year of the 32 will actually have first-round grades? Somebody answered that question. I will share that information with you when we return. Kevin Sheehan Show, the Team 980, theteam980.com. Don't forget, you can watch the show on our YouTube channel. Just hit the subscribe button and hit the like button when you get there. What I got is that Sean McVay, during these Phoenix League meetings, was asked about whether or not the coaches that come off his tree compared to the coaches that come off the Shanahan tree, if it should be called more the Shanahan tree or the McVay tree. We know all of the coaches that have come off the Shanahan tree, and Sean's had a bunch of them as well. Here's what he said.
Why isn't it called the Kyle Shanahan coaching tree? Why is it the McVay?
It should be.
It's
Wait,
look at that.
Here's the thing. I think
No,
it's
I don't
Mike
like when
Shanahan.
you guys are friendly towards each other.
It's the Mike Shanahan tree. We all started under his dad, and Kyle was the coordinator. And so, look, I have such appreciation for the history of this game. It's not like everybody that's come through our building, they've contributed, and I've learned from them too. And Kyle's somebody that I learned from, and I worked underneath him as an assistant. I can remember, when I was responsible for the red zone, trying to get plays in, and when he'd end up getting those in, you're excited about it. So it should be the Shanahan tree. I agree.
Yeah, my fault. The question was from Kay Adams at the NFL Network about Kyle Shanahan or Sean McVay tree. Look, Jay Gruden will tell you, and by the way, Sean McVay will mention it too, that a lot of the coaching tree talk, and I think we talked about this not that long ago, is also off the Jay Gruden coaching tree. The whole Jay Gruden and Mike Shanahan thing kind of got pushed together because Kyle's first job was with John Gruden. Sean's first job was with John Gruden. And then Kyle went to Washington, and then Sean the first full-time coaching gig was Kyle with John Gruden. Sean ended up with Mike. Kyle ended up back with Mike, but Jay said many times a lot of those guys really came off of my brother's tree as much as they did off of Mike's tree. Sean McVay's coaching tree, though, I mean, here's the list. Doesn't include, this year. Sean McVay's coaching tree: Zach Taylor, Matt LaFleur, Brandon Staley, Jed Fish, who's the head coach at Washington, Kevin O'Connell, Raheem Morris, Liam Cohen, and now Mike LaFleur, who got the job in Arizona. Pretty impressive for a guy that was just hired in 2017. So Matt Miller's one of the many ESPN NFL draft analysts. I actually like the way I like the way he lays it out. I like the way Matt thinks. He put out a multi-round mock the other day, but yesterday or this morning, actually, he put out the players that he has first-round grades on. We know there will be 32 players selected in the first round, and they will forever be referred to as first-round selections in the 2026 draft. But how many of those players actually have true first-round grades? This is something that gets discussed every year, is how many players legitimately are first-rounders? And that is, a big question for teams to consider, because if it's only, 15 and you've got the 18th pick, you'd rather trade back and trade out of the first round because you're not getting a player, in your opinion, that has a first-round grade. So Matt Miller came up on his board with the players that have true first-round grades. Last year, he only had 13 first-round graded players in the 2025 class. But the 2026 class actually ends up with fewer. He's got 12 players in this draft with first-round grades. He wrote, for context, the final list in 2024 had 18 names on it, and the 2023 list, I had 20 players. He writes, great, as with first-round grades. So just 12 this year. Not good. Here are those players. At quarterback, he also gives comps for these players. At quarterback, he does consider Fernando Mendoza to be a first-round graded player. He also comps him to Joe Burrow. Burrow's super accurate, just like Mendoza. Running back, one running back with a first-round grade, Jeremiah Love. The comp, Reggie Bush. We've heard that comp many times for him. He does right, Matt Miller. Love is on par with recent prospects such as Bijan Robinson and Jahmyr Gibbs in terms of talent and upside. That's his belief. I disagree, but I don't have a draft column. Receivers, there are just 2 in this year's draft with first-round grades. Mekhi Lemon, the smaller, probably inside slot receiver from USC, he comps him to Amon-Ra St. Brown, not a bad comp. And then Carnell Tate, he's got a first-round grade on, and he comps Carnell Tate to Cooper Kupp, and says that Tate, from a body perspective, looks like Kupp or Justin Jefferson. And comps his college games to Kupp and to Justin Jefferson. Tight end, he's got 1 with a first-round grade. That 1 is Kenyon Sadiq. There's been a lot of Kenyon Sadiq talk because of how athletic he is and how, scouts were buzzing coming off Indy. The comp for him would be another freak of nature athlete, Vernon Davis. Offensive tackle, just 1, Francis Mauanoa from Miami. He comps him to Darnell Wright, and he doesn't have 1 interior offensive lineman with a first-round grade. So on offense, he's got 6 players with first-round grades: Mendoza, Love, Tate, Lemon, Sadiq, and Mauanoa from Miami, the tackle, which everybody now assumes will be the first tackle selected. None on the interior offensive line. Now, he's got another 6 with first-round grades on defense. I'll share those with you when I come back because there is 1 missing that I was surprised about. Kevin Sheehan Show, the Team 980 and the team980.com. Matt Miller, ESPN, put out a story this morning about the upcoming draft. 3 weeks from today, we will know who Washington selected in the first round. I'll also share with you coming up here in this hour who the odds-on favorite is to be picked by Washington at number 7. So Matt Miller had 12 players graded as first-rounders in this draft. Matt Miller is one of the draft experts at ESPN. It looks like the fewest for him in a while. In 2025, he had 13 first-round grades. In 2024, he had 18 first-round grades. In 2023, 20 first-round grades. This year, just 12 players with actual first-round grades, even though there will be 32 players selected in the first round. His 12 players included 6 on offense. I've shared those with you. Fernando Mendoza, Jeremiah Love, Mekhi Lemon, Carnell Tate, Kenyon Sadiq, and Francis Mauanoa. Those are the 6 on offense that he has with first-round grades. So no Jordan Tyson, as an example, wide receiver, as a first-round graded player. But there's a missing defensive player from his list that is very surprising. So here are the players he has with first-round grades defensively. He has just 6. The first one is David Bailey. He comps David Bailey, and I think I've mentioned this player before in talking about David Bailey. He comps Bailey to Nick Bonito with the Broncos. So just one edge he has with a first-round grade. Now, he does have Arvell Reese, just so you know, as a linebacker. He's got no interior defensive lineman with first-round grades. And then he's got Arvell Reese as a linebacker with a first-round grade. And he comps Reese to Abdul Carter, the Penn State edge pass rusher from last year. And then he also has Sonny Styles with a first-round grade. Comps Sonny Styles to Fred Warner. More on Sonny Styles coming up before the end of this show. And then he's got 2 corners. And he's actually got one specific corner ranked ahead of the one that we've heard could be a possibility for Washington at 7. Jermod McCoy, corner Tennessee, he has with a first-round grade and his highest graded cornerback. Comps him to Christian Gonzalez. And then he has the LSU corner, Mansour Delane, as a Trent McDuffie comp. And then one safety with a first-round grade, Caleb Downs. He comps him to Budda Baker. So Downs, Delane, McCoy, Styles, Reese, and Bailey, all with first-round grades defensively, 12 total players. Who's missing from this list? Ruben Bain. He does not put a first-round grade on Ruben Bain. I guess it's those short arms, damn it. Ruben Bain's going to get taken in the first round, but that could be one of those things that becomes very interesting during the first round. Like, that's a guy that I guess could certainly drop, not based on performance, not based on, high quality, overall character and everything else, but because these short arms for defensive ends, for edge pass rushers, are considered to be death. And he's got the shortest in years. I mean, where will he fall, in that first round? It is possible, that, if teams don't have a first-round grade on him, he could go mid to late first. In Matt Miller's mock draft, which, doesn't necessarily match up with what he wrote about players with first-round grades, he has Ruben Bain going 9th to Kansas City, but he doesn't consider him to be first-round value. He's also got the receiver Jordan Tyson going 16th to the Jets, but he doesn't have him with a first-round grade. This is just projecting what the teams will do. So there you go. Yeah, I mean, I like this exercise, whether they're right or wrong. Who knows? You know, I'm sure we could go back and find his first round grades from the last few years, and find plenty that he didn't have first round graded that turned out to be spectacular. But you hear this all the time from draft people. You hear about just the idea that they're 32 in the first round, but not 32 with first round grades. Never do they have that. Carnell Tate's comp, Cooper Kupp, huh? That wouldn't be the one I'd throw out there. I'd throw out just a less kind of explosive or yards after catch Justin Jefferson, because body type is similar. I mean, give me Justin Jefferson. I like Tate a lot. This 40 time doesn't bother me at all. At all. I'd still take him over Jeremiah Love if you told me they were going to pick offense. He's actually got Mekhi Lemon rated slightly ahead of Carnell Tate. He compares him to Amon-Ra St. Brown. Is 7 too early for Mekhi Lemon? Who knows? This is going to be a draft where after 1 and Mendoza, it's going to be, as much as this draft is a crapshoot and we don't know anything and the teams don't know anything, it's a good television show. It's an entertaining television show. That's for sure. And this year, even without the quarterbacks, it's going to be really interesting to see where these guys go. Because I think after 1, any order is possible. Any order. So BetMGM has the odds on the top 8 picks. So the top 8, teams and their slots and who the favorite is to go in those slots. Obviously, Mendoza is a big favorite to go number 1 overall. Arvell Reese is the favorite to go number 2 overall. David Bailey is the favorite to go number 3 overall. And then Jeremiah Love is a plus 135 favorite to go to Tennessee at number 5. Sonny Styles is the favorite to go to the Giants. I'm sorry, Love 4 to Tennessee. Styles is the favorite to go to the Giants at 5. Carnell Tate is the favorite to go to the Browns at 6. And then the favorite to go number 7 overall to Washington right now is Jeremiah Love at plus 200. So he's the favorite to go to number 4 to Tennessee at plus 135, but he's also the favorite. How does that happen? Because it's who's the most likely in that spot. Obviously, Love would be off the board if he got picked at number 4, but you don't know that he's going to be the pick at number 4. So he is a plus 200 favorite at number 7 for Washington. That's going to be, it certainly feels like it's setting up for that we're going to be in that spot where if for those that want Jeremiah Love, I mean, and I'm not in that camp, not at 7, but for those that want him, number 4 will be critical. Mendoza's going to the Raiders. The Jets are probably going to take, I am guessing, they're not taking Jeremiah Love with Breece Hall. They're going to take an edge. They're going to take Reese. They're going to take Bailey. They're going to take somebody like that. Arizona's been sort of mocked with, Mauanoa as a possibility, or Reese. But then you get to Tennessee, and that's the first spot for Jeremiah Love. Would be very high for a running back. But they have Pollard and they have Ty J. Spears behind Cam Ward, giving Cam Ward, Jeremiah Love. A lot of people think that'll happen. But if he doesn't go there, and people believe that, Harbaugh's going to be in love with either Styles or Caleb Downs, if he doesn't go at 4, then he's maybe not going to the Giants and more likely than not going to Cleveland. And then it becomes Washington at 7. Going to be fun to watch the first round unfold. There are going to be some players that we've talked about available, more likely than not. Be interesting to see what their board looks like. That's what I'd love to see. I want to know what their board looks like. I don't think we'll ever get that. So yesterday, we had Bobby Carpenter on the show, linebacker, Ohio State, linebacker, Dallas Cowboys, hosts a radio show in Columbus. And I had him on to talk about the Ohio State guys in particular. And many of you reacted to this particular part of what Bobby Carpenter described. I asked him a question about, if you're starting a franchise, you don't have a player, which of the 4 Ohio State players, Caleb Downs, Sonny Styles, Carnell Tate, Arvell Reese, which of the 4 would you pick to kind of start your franchise? Here's what he said.
Ooh, from starting from scratch or trying to figure that whole thing out, I would probably, it's tough because there's a lot of good options there, like you said, and probably all of them will go in the top 10. I would probably go with Sonny just because I'm a big believer in front to back, inside to out, and I think he's going to be that centerpiece of your defense for a long time. He checks all the boxes. He's big. He's physical. He's smart. He can help you in the run and the pass. He's got blitz ability as well, great coverage ability, and just really, rock solid of a human being. And so I would go with him to kind of start that defense off, start that team off, and start building around.
So a lot of you followed up saying you really enjoyed Bobby Carpenter on the show, but several of you, like I'm reading from Andrew right now, Kevin, the Ohio State guy was great. His description of Styles made me think he's the guy. Yeah, I kind of felt that way too. And I felt that way periodically here over the last month or so, depending on the day. Styles seems like, an Adam Peters, especially the comp to Fred Warner by Matt Miller and others. That just seems like a Dan Quinn, Adam Peters, not only culture, character, smarts, the whole thing, but the guy has a high RAS score, relative athletic score, absolutely killed it at the combine. And it fills a huge need because right now they don't have somebody to take Bobby Wagner's spot. Can he do it as a rookie? I don't know, but somebody's going to have to fill that spot. It may be Jordan McGee early, but Styles seems like a Washington pick. I kind of felt the same way, Andrew and others that reached out to me. I kind of felt the same way as he was talking about Sonny Styles. I'm like, if this guy is everything that Carpenter is saying he is, it just kind of feels like a Dan Quinn, Adam Peters selection. Did you feel that way, Max? I forget if we talked about this. Max has stepped away.
On Sonny Styles?
Yeah.
I'm a big RAS score guy, and I know Adam Peters is as well. And there's also a little something that I just sent you about this guy who has grown up in Nigeria and is entering the draft this year, who's 6'4", 306 and jumped 10'10". So it just athletic freaks I'm a big fan of, and I know like everyone is obviously in the NFL. It's the NFL. But with that combined with, him being at Ohio State, the leadership qualities, all of that, it's kind of hard to pass up if he's there at 7. You know what I mean?
Yeah. The issue is whether or not Harbaugh feels the same way and takes him at 5.
Right. And that's the problem. But Harbaugh, on the same token, had a long conversation with Caleb Downs, and the Ravens did draft Kyle Hamilton under Harbaugh's tenure. So he does like that style of player. So it wouldn't shock me if Downs was the one that they ended up going with at 5.
So here's the question that I want to ask all of you. 301-230-0980. We'll be sitting here 3 weeks from now knowing who they selected at number 7 in the first round, unless they trade back and trade out of the first round. I don't see that happening. I don't want to know who you want or who you think will get picked. I want you to tell me who you think, based on what we've learned about these guys. Peters, Newmark, the front office, Dan Quinn. The coordinator part is a little bit hard. But based on what we know about our team's front office and coaching staff, who do you think is the number 1 player on their board? Who do you think they're hoping is there at 7? They're not going to tell you, obviously. And even though, and Ben asked Adam Peters this question the other day. He asked about, saying after the 2024 draft that Jaden Daniels was always their guy. He was always their number one player on the board, always their number one quarterback that they evaluated, and they got him. Who do you think is tops on their board right now? And you just have to consider, these guys and what they're looking for in players, and Adams, sort of past of high, relative athletic scores, RAS scores. By the way, Sonny Styles off the charts. Not who you want, not who you think will be there and they will take, but who do you think the number one player on their board is? 301-230-0980. 301-230-0980. I'll give you my answer. Max will give you his when we come back. Kevin Sheehan Show. The Team 980, the team980.com. We are also free and live on the Odyssey app. If your heat was running more than it should have been during the winter time, and if you think it's going to run more than it should in the summertime, it's time to replace your older windows. And spring's a great time to do it, man. A lot of you want to open up your windows at night, but you can't because they're stuck or they're cracked. Look, if you've had windows for more than 10 years, you should be looking to replace those windows. You'll save big time just on utilities alone. And the place to get new windows, of course, my guys at Window Nation. And right now, they're easy to get. They're affordable to get. The sale they've got going on during the month of April is called the More You Buy, the More You Save sale. You can save up to 50% off on everything you purchase, plus get 0% interest for 5 years. So you won't pay interest until after the team's moved into the new stadium. And maybe won a Super Bowl at that point. During uncertain times, one of the best investments you can make is in your home. Visit windownation.com or call them at 866-90-NATION to schedule a fast, free, no-risk, no obligation in-home estimate. 866-90-NATION, windownation.com.
An interception prior to tonight. So each team has thrown a pick. Riley Leonard and the Irish from their own 2. Jeremiah Love breaks free. Jeremiah Love trying to go 98. Touchdown! Will run in the first touchdown of the 12-team playoff.
Is there anybody better or more versatile than Sean McDonough calling games? I don't think so. I think he might be my number one. Tirico's really close. He's got incredible range and versatility, but there's something dramatic with every Sean McDonough call, and it doesn't matter what the sport is. All right, the question at 301-230-0980, 301-230-0980 is, forget for a moment who you want the Commanders to pick at number 7 or who you think they will pick based on who you think may be available. And instead, based on what you know about Adam Peters, the experience we now have with the Peters front office, with the head coach, instead, tell me who you think right now is the current number 1 player on their draft board. The person that they'd love to see fall to 7 more than any other. That's different from who you want or who you think might be there and they'll end up taking. Who is their dream scenario number 1 player on their draft board? Max, who do you think it is?
So we played the Jeremiah Love highlight coming in, and I think it's him. I if they want to add some, it depends on where they're looking. If they're looking on defense, I think that Sonny Styles is probably the top prospect on their board that they feel like that they can get. But if you really want to add offense and offensive explosion, I do think that Jeremiah Love is the pick at 7 if he does last that long, if he's on the board. Because think about, people have mentioned it all the time in this draft cycle, but just pairing him up with Jaden offers so much more just dynamicness into the offense. And also with David Blau coming in, you don't really know like what they're looking for or what style they're trying to play. Because with the Ben Sinnott pick, he feels like more of an H-back type guy or a fullback type player that I think could do a lot of good if he was back in the backfield lead blocking for a guy, especially like Jeremiah Love, who kind of waits for the hole to open and then bam, he's gone. So I do think that Love is probably the top offensive guy on their board. Defensive wise, it's probably Styles, just because, athletic freaks and Ohio State is churning them out. So
Sonny Styles ranked first, not only among the linebackers in this draft in relative athletic score, but he is first out of 3,200 linebackers measured for relative athletic score since 1987. He's 6'5", he's 244 pounds. He ran 4.45 in the 40. He's got a 43.5 vertical and an 11.2 broad jump. I'm not into all that stuff, but I know that Adam Peters is. This was a near perfect RAS score, relative athletic score, something that has been emphasized by this front office since they started drafting players in 2024. Not only that, this guy's character, as we heard from Bobby Carpenter yesterday, and if you've read about Sonny Styles, this guy is super bright. He is a leader, born leader. He is high character, high quality. It also fills a big need. I think Sonny Styles is the number 1 player on their board, and they are praying that he drops to 7. Now, by the way, I'm not considering Fernando Mendoza, just FYI, as a player who might be the number 1 player on their board. I'm also not really considering Francis Mauanoa, the tackle from Miami, because I don't see them picking a tackle at number 7. But they may be on the board somewhere, right? Because if they were to drop and there was tremendous value, they'd have a feeling and a sense of what they could get back from somebody who wanted to trade into that spot. Not going to happen with Mendoza for sure. I think Sonny Styles is number 1. And beyond that, I'll tell you, it would not surprise me if Bailey or Bain was number 2. Bain seems like a Dan Quinn kind of guy. Even though Matt Miller, I just told you, does not have a first-round grade on Ruben Bain. I know what Bailey is, I think, in terms of how he would be perceived. I don't think he's around at 7. But, yeah, they added pass rushers, but I still think that they would have David Bailey ranked very high. I also think that it's not out of the question that they would have Carnell Tate or Mekhi Lemon ranked very high, and maybe ahead of Love. All of those guys I mentioned. Styles would be number 1 for me. So again, the question is not who you want them to take at number 7, not who you think they'll take based on availability, and mock drafts, but who right now do you think is the number 1 player on Washington's board? Let's start with my guy, Kevin Arlington. Kev, go ahead.
Hey, Kevin. Now, I think if it were Dan Quinn's choice, he'd want his Bobby Wagner replacement in Styles. But looking at the total team and who are the superstars in this draft, you can't get past Love. I know that you historically have been very shrewd about who you like coming out of college who can tote the rock in the backfield. And for some reason, Love isn't up there with Bijan Robinson and others for you. And that's okay. Maybe you're right. But let me tell you something. Dak became the quarterback he became because he had Zeke Elliott there. Jalen Hurts didn't really take off until he got Saquon Barkley. Our division has shown you need a dynamic duo in the backfield to win a lot of games. And I sure as hell don't want Love going up to New York with Dart and Harbaugh. I think they haven't done enough to help Jaden this offseason so far. This will help him. They don't want Jaden running the football as much as he was in the Kingsbury offense. They want a stud like Love who can take over games with his rushing attack. And I do see Sennett in the USAC role. I see him as a fullback in this offense.
Yeah.
I could be wrong, and I'd love it if it's Styles, okay? Don't get me wrong. I think Styles is amazing. But what they need, in my opinion, and that's going to drive their decision because he's also a superstar athlete, they need Love, and that's who they're going to get if he's there.
Thanks, Kev. As always, I let me just say this: Quinn's not going to be the only one that's in love with Styles. I mean, I just went through he's number 1 all time for off-ball linebackers in relative athletic score. You know that Adam Peters at that Indy Combine said, "What? 6'5", 244? This guy is an absolute freak, and he's really smart, and he's a great locker room guy, and we have a major need at that position." I'd be shocked if the organization's front office isn't in love with Styles. Now, whether or not he's number 1 on their board or not, I think he is. My guess would be he's number 1 on their board. But that would go beyond just a Dan Quinn or Durante Jones infatuation. I think that Styles is a guy that probably many organizations love. I think the problem, of course, with Styles in getting to Styles is Harbaugh at 5. Let's go to TC. TC, go ahead. Who's the guy that you think is number 1 on their board right now?
Yes, Kevin. Thanks for the call.
Sure.
Taking my call. I believe it's Jeremiah Love, and here's the reason why. Adam Peters come from the tree of the Shanahans. Shanahan in love with McCaffrey. The running back can do everything. You see how they've been using McCaffrey ever since they got him. He's in love with that. So therefore, I believe we are in love. He's number 1 on the board. He can take it to the house. He can do all that. Plus, you got a better quarterback than what the 49ers have in our guy. So that's going to alleviate some of the pressure off of him. You can't imagine what's going to happen with this offense with Daniels and Love back there. I love Styles, but Styles is not going to bring it like Love and Daniels. It is no way. That is going to be
I understand the
and
vision
you
of
can't
what
do
the offense could be like with Jeremiah Love in it. And I also feel the same way you do and Kevin does and probably many others. I'd like to see Jaden get another dynamic weapon because right now he's really only got one. But let me also remind you that Christian McCaffrey came via trade as a proven player.
Right.
The 49ers under Kyle and certainly the Broncos under his father, they don't draft running backs high historically. They've never taken running backs high.
But Kevin,
all of their running backs have been found in the 4th round and later, 3rd round and later.
Kevin,
Tatum Bell might have been the highest picked. Yeah, go ahead.
Let me interrupt you. That's correct. But you don't get a running back of this caliber that high. That's why they haven't drafted him high. When you see a running back of this caliber, you have to go for it. That's why I believe he is the number one on the board. He's a game changer. Styles is good, but Styles ain't no game changer. Right. It's just that simple. This is a game changer. And you talking about your team overall point of view and what's going to happen. That is why he's number one on the list. If the Styles is there, that's fine. You know, he might go to Tennessee and he's not there. So there, you might be short with Styles if the Giants take Styles. So you have to, you got to be flexible. But I believe Love is the number one guy on it because he is the game changer. And you need a game changer in this league. You know, you can find a Warner. Remember Warner wasn't the first round draft pick.
Right.
So you can find somebody like that. That's all right. Thanks for my call.
No, thanks for the call. Appreciate it. I'm just trying to check to see if what draft was McCaffrey taken? McCaffrey was what, 8 overall? Was that the 2016 or 2017 draft? Yeah, so just 2017, okay. Kyle's first year in San Francisco, right? 2017 is his first year in San Francisco, pretty sure, because they tried to trade for Kirk, remember. They had the number 2 pick to start. They flipped it with Chicago, who took Mitch Trubisky, and then the 49ers took Solomon Thomas at number 3. But you know who was on the board for the 49ers at number 3? Christian McCaffrey. They didn't take Christian McCaffrey in that draft. Who did the 49ers have as a running back in 2017? I'd have to look that up. I don't remember off the top of my head. The Shanahans don't take running backs in the first round of the draft. It's just never happened. I think that, if Adam Peters believes that Jeremiah Love is Bijan Robinson or Christian McCaffrey, then the possibility exists. But if he doesn't, then, he made that comment the other day, about you can find him in the 7th round too, like we did last year, speaking about, Bill and Ja'Cory Krosky-Merritt. So I'm not sure that I'm bought into where you guys are, that they have Jeremiah Love that high. We'll find out. It's very possible that that's what's left at 7, and the players that were higher on their board already got picked. But I think Styles is the kind of guy, especially when you just consider everything, that if he's not number 1 on their board, he's very, very high. And I think ahead of Love, personally. Aveen, go ahead.
Being a tie between Reese and Styles, you've heard them repeatedly this offseason, and they've done it, talk about speed. We need more speed. Those 2 guys were the combine darlings. Both of them are super versatile. You have the Parsons comparisons with Reese. They both have the length and everything. Everybody seems to love Styles too. There were reports that a team gave him a standing ovation after a combine interview. So I think everybody's in love with Styles. But those would be the 2 guys. And Kevin, just playing,
you think Reese? So you think Reese and Styles?
Yeah. And just looking at what they've done in the past in Dan Quinn with edges, sometimes the talent beats any prototypical idea of what you want out. But, they've only acquired really tall, long edge players like Fowler, Armstrong, this past offseason, Owe, Chason, Omenihu. Right. That's their type. And, Ruben Bain has short arms.
No, that's
I heard
true.
the X-Scout.
Bailey's and Reese are better fits for that, no doubt.
Yeah, I heard an X-Scout saying, you know, like Bain is probably off Washington's board, knowing what Quinn likes with edges. And Bailey's also a little shorter, too. So he doesn't entirely fit what we signed in the past. And I'll just go to receiver.
Who have they taken in? I'm just trying to think in terms of a pass rusher that was longer and leaner. Like, that's not necessarily John Baptiste. That's not necessarily, Newton, obviously. Yeah, they haven't. They haven't is the answer. Sorry, go ahead. Finish.
Receivers, I think they really, really value yards after catch ability. I mean, you've seen that with who they've drafted. They've drafted two guys who can also return stuff. You've seen that with Debo. They signed Debo. And, Tate and Tyson, that's not their thing. Yards after catch, it's Lemon. So I have a feeling they don't have any
disagree.
of those guys.
I've watched Tate enough. I think Tate's going to be fine in yards after catch. I really do.
Okay.
Yeah.
And
Lemon outstanding, but Lemon from a different standpoint. I mean, he'd be obviously more of your slot. And look, as we look at it right now, if they don't get Brandon Aiyuk, they think highly of Burks. They think, obviously highly of Terry. The answer that they haven't, in addition to an outside, but they also don't know that they have, a slot receiver. And you know this, and I think you and I have talked about this before. But in the Blau system, we're going to see a lot of 12 and 13 personnel. That's why they added Chig, and that's why they're talking up, Lawrence Cager. There's going to be a lot of tight end, presence and snaps on the field. Go ahead. What else? What else you got?
Yeah, I'll just end it with this. I do think they want to take a big home run swing for Jaden Daniels on offense. I think they want to add one more explosive player. You saw that with Pierce; they're willing to throw the most money at him. But I'm not sure that's love. I have this feeling, Kevin, that they're working on something at receiver. Like, there might be a draft day trade coming. I've seen there was a recent report about an AFC exec saying that Brian Thomas Jr. might be available as a draft day trade, something like that. I think the dream for them is to add, one more explosive blue chip player on offense, one more explosive blue chip player on defense. If you can acquire a player on offense, take a big swing doing that, and then draft a player on defense, I think that's like the ultimate outcome. But it might not be love, but I think it might be something else.
Well, look, I think by the time they get to 71 in the third round, there could be, this may be hope more than anything else, because I love Zachariah Branch from Georgia. But to have somebody like that, there are receivers in this draft. I know that they brought in Denzel Boston for a top 30 visit. Now, will he be there in the third round? Probably not. But there are possibilities when you go down that wide receiver list for 71. Same thing for running back, too. Like, the guy from Washington, Jonah Coleman, would be a potential for the third round. So we've seen receivers and running backs certainly on night 2 and day 3 turn into stars. There just aren't many Sonny Styleses in this draft if he were to fall to them. Thanks, as always, Aveen. If you're on hold, stay there. 301-230-0980. I'm not asking for who you want them to pick or even who you think they'll pick at number 7 based on availability. Who do you think is the number 1 player on their board currently? 301-230-0980. Ben Standig will join us at noon.
Time for an NCAA Final Four Spotlight.
We might get back to this next hour. A lot of you want to weigh in. The question, simply put, is who do you think the number one player on their board is? Not who you want to see selected, not who you think they'll select based on availability, but who do you think, based on what we know about Quinn and Adam Peters and Lance Newmark and the entire team, who do you think they've got as the guy that they are praying or hoping falls to number 7? I think it's Styles. Max thinks it's Love. Ray in Suitland. Ray, go ahead. Who do you think it is?
Hey, what's going on, Kevin? It's the first time I called, man. Look, I think I agree with you. I think Styles is number one on their board. They praying that he makes it to them. But I'm going to tell you this, man. Ruben Bain is going to be a perennial all-pro,
I think
man.
It's going to be great.
That's with the arms and all that crap. I don't know what the hell they're looking at, man, but that dude is going to be a perennial all-pro. I mark my words.
I am such a big Ruben Bain fan as a college player. He was so dominant. He was so great in those playoff games. But the NFL does not like short arms for that position. And they have a lot of history that says that there's a limitation if you don't have longer arms. Ray, thanks for the call. Appreciate it. Let's go to Bob and Frederick. Bob, go ahead.
It's actually Rob, but that's okay. I'll take it.
Oh, I'm
way.
sorry, Rob.
Hey, my thing is, it's no big deal. I was just, it's either going to be Reese or Bailey, who I think's high on their board. But if Love falls down to him at 7 and he's the best player on the board, they have to take him, or try to trade and then take him.
Oh, I think if he's the highest rated player on the board, they absolutely have to take him. I totally agree with that. Trade back opportunities are probably not going to be great, although maybe a player like Love is intriguing enough to get somebody to try to move up. We'll see. Thanks, Rob. Appreciate it. Let's go to our guy, Bobby in North Carolina. Bobby, who do you think's number one on their board?
Kevin, before I give my answer, I hope it's not offense. I still think we need defense, but I'm like you. If Styles is there at 7, you got to get him. And, we still need cornerback help too. So I wouldn't have a problem if Caleb Downs is there too, if they take either one of those players.
Well, he's a safety,
I still
Bobby,
think you
not
got
a
to get
corner.
defense.
Yeah.
Well, safety. Okay, either way, he's going to be on the back 4. But Styles is my answer for sure. If he's there, let's go get him and see what happens. But Styles is the man, buddy. Have a good weekend.
Thanks, Bobby. Appreciate it. Yeah. Again, the question, who do you think is number one on their board? Who is Adam Peters, Lance Newmark and company, and Dan Quinn is part of it? They got a board somewhere right now, and it may change between now and, 3 weeks from last night. But who do you think, based on what we know about them, who do you think they're hoping is there at 7? I think it's Sonny Styles. He fits everything. RAS score, unbelievable. Highest ranked relative athletic score since 87 for an off-ball linebacker. He's a super smart player, high IQ, high quality, and he fills a major need. Let's go to Tony in L.A. Tony, thanks for holding. Go ahead.
Hey, good morning. Yeah, so if you look at Adam Peters' history, just in the draft, they got Medrano, they got McGee, so they go for top RAS guys. Look at the free agents. They got Owe, Chanel, top RAS guys also. So I'd say Reese, Styles have to be top 2, and then you got Love 3rd, and Bain's going to be an exception. I think Bain's going to be a great player, and actually Bailey is actually probably a great athletic score guy too. So I'd say one of those 4 guys is going to be there. And by the way, Kevin, great job on the smell test.
Yeah, the weekend, Sunday wasn't very good, but we're going to bounce back. I'll have picks here at the end of the show. Thanks, Tony. Appreciate it. Let's go to Sabah. Sabah is weighing in on who you think the number one player on their draft board is.
Hey, Kevin, shout out to you for keeping the name alive. Let's keep that going, okay? Just wanted to put that out there.
All right.
So, what I think is Jeremiah Love, number one, is who they want and who they think best, because he keeps talking about everybody else, but Jeremiah Love keeps complimenting other players besides Jeremiah Love. And I think he needs Jaden to succeed, and the best way he can succeed is to have a running back, And when do you want to get your running backs? Early, not after they get beat up. Even my guy Marion Hampton's already beat up after 5 minutes in the league. So absolutely, because he needs to make sure that he was right on that pick, that they don't keep talking about Drake May or Penix and Bo Nix and all those guys. You got to get Jaden and the offense going. Defense is secondary right now. He needs Jaden.
We got to get
good,
Jaden on the field to get him going. Sabah. He's got to be on the field for him to get going, because when he was on the field in 2024, the running back situation wasn't great, right? Brian Robinson Jr., Eckler was hurt a lot of the year, and yet he lit the entire league up without a great running back. So I think they like their running back room right now. I think if they had to go into the season with the running back room as is, they'd be fine with it. But it doesn't mean that they would pass on, a transcendent generational type of back. If they think he's Bijan Robinson or Christian McCaffrey, or Saquon Barkley, he's going to be the highest rated player on their board, more likely than not. But they certainly need some help offensively, but they did just fine in 2024 without it. And last year, they just didn't have their players on the field. That was their issue more than anything else. Will in Richmond. Will, go ahead.
I think you're right, Kevin. I think that they're having questions about the who's going to wear the green dot next year. Sonny Styles seems like he would be a perfect fit for that. He's, like you said, amazing athlete. However, I do think they would be interested in maybe Mansour Delane as well.
Yeah.
Dan Quinn really likes values, physical, versatile linebackers, and Adam Peters as well with the length and flexibility and depth pieces. So Delane checks all the things that they're looking for.
Delane's got to be high. I agree with you. I mean, I haven't mentioned it because I think guys like Bailey and even Tate are going to be high on their board. But when Delane ran that 4.35 or whatever he ran in his pro day at LSU recently, I thought, wow, that's got to be a guy that they really like. Not to mention, just this guy is a man covering beast. So we'll see.
I mean,
yeah.
And you got to think about Durante Jones. He likes to develop those hybrid nickels and safeties and rotate post snap. I think, like I said, he can check this. He's real scheme flexible and has good instincts, strong tackler. I think he's like the next step behind Sonny Styles. So thank you.
Thanks, Will. Good call. Appreciate that. Those of you who I didn't get to, my apologies. Ben Standing's coming up. We might go back to this next hour. Good insight and good thoughts from a lot of you. Appreciate it. Ben's next. Time for Ben Standig on this show. He joins us every Monday and Friday as our Washington Commanders insider. Substack is where you can find him. You can link to it by going to Ben Standig, at Ben Standig on X on Twitter. He's just written something that dovetails perfectly with the conversation we were just having. I'll have you get into some of what you just wrote, but I'll ask you the question that I asked the callers last two segments, which is forget who you think you want, or forget who you want them to pick. Forget who you think they'll pick based on availability, based on mocking it out as you do. Guess who the number one player is on their board right now. Who do you think it is?
So just to be clear, if I think Arvell Reese is going to,
It doesn't matter.
He still could be their number one guy.
Rank the board. Who's number one on their board?
Oh man, it could be it could very well be Arvell Reese based on like everybody seems projecting him, to go top 2 or 3, which is like the only like consistent projection of any of these guys that going in the top
other
10
than Mendoza
that he would go high.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. Other than him. So could very well be him. But I mean, I don't know. The Sonny Styles part of this, again, the whole off-ball linebacker thing, not a premium position, but the athleticism is off the charts. He's kind of a modern defender, former safety who can play linebacker, can cover, can do the green dot, all that stuff. Top the board maybe is tough, but that might be my guess after Reese.
Yeah, that was my guess with Styles, and it was in part due to what you've written about Adam Peters' obsession with RAS scores, because he's the number one off-ball linebacker from a relative athletic score ever ranked since 1987 when they started doing it. But we've also heard high character, very bright, teammates love him, great in the locker room, and, oh, by the way, it fills a major need. So it wouldn't surprise me if he's number one. Your point about Reese is a good one. And I did say Bailey and Reese are possibilities, and maybe even Delane after what he did on his pro day could be in play as well. But I went with Styles. Like there's something that just makes sense. Now, he may not be there, and I forget where your last mock had him because there is a lot of mocking Styles to the Giants at 5. But Fred Warner, man, that's his comp. And Adam Peters has been around Fred Warner.
Yeah, no, I mean, I specifically asked Peters at the league meetings about the idea of, taking a non-premium position player high in the draft. And he was like, well, look, I mean, you obviously have to factor in the economics and all that, but I don't really care about the quote unquote non-premium position. If a guy can play, he can play. He's like, look at Fred Warner, ... A guy that he drafted who obviously had a great success. I think he was a 3rd round pick, I want to say. So,
yes.
There's something to be said for that for sure. And I mean, the only thing I'm sort of hesitant right now is, again, we talked the other day about the green dot, who's going to have it, all that stuff. And if you take Styles and you still have Chenal and Luvu, so that's 3 linebackers. What are we looking at now then for this defense? Is it going to be, you're not taking Chason and Owe off the field, right? And so that leaves 2 like defensive tackle types, and that's more of a 4-3 base. So that's where I'm sort of stuck on to a degree is how does it fit right now? Long term, it's completely fine. Luvu's a free agent at the end of the year anyway, all that. But for this year, that's my only how would that actually work?
So let me follow along with you. So obviously Chenal is an off-ball linebacker. Styles would be the same. I think Luvu's more versatile than that. I mean, I could certainly see in a 3-4 Luvu being on one edge and Owe being on the other. But to your point, there's a lot of options there, right? There's Chason. There's still Dorrance Armstrong. coming back. There's Omenihu, who, where are we going to see him? Maybe as an inside pass rusher on pass downs. But I could see Luvu being used as a 2-point stance edge, outside linebacker in a base 3-4.
I mean, I guess, but again, like I would be surprised if he would be playing over Chason, based on Chason's that's more of his natural, the natural role. They just gave him a $12 million deal, so like that's where I'm picturing him working, and neither he nor Owe is like big enough, I would say, to be a 3-4 end. Maybe the coaches would push back on that in this more sort of more modern era, but that would be my only wonder.
Well, why don't you push back? Why don't you push back on the same idea if they were to take, let's just say Bailey were to drop to 7, because you've got Owe, you've got Armstrong coming back, you've got Chason.
Yeah, well, the difference there is that the defensive linemen, you typically send waves of those guys in, and the Bailey thing also would be for the future. Owe is the only one who's under contract of the main defensive ends beyond this year, so that would work. And it's just that like Luvu plays every snap last year. Since he's been here, right?
Yeah, I know.
Chenal's probably going to play a ton. So I'm not saying you couldn't have that. You can't rotate guys, but I don't know that that's the plan at linebacker with those guys. That would seem to be a bit much. But again, you take the best player sometimes and you figure it out and go from there.
Yeah, I mean, and back to the conversation we had the other day, who's the green dot? Who's the Bobby Wagner replacement? Is it Chenal? Is it Luvu? Is it Nick Cross? Is it Will Harris? Is it Jordan McGee? That would be something that we'd be, trying to figure out as training camp began. But by the way, all of these things are much better issues for them, having choices than having none and trying to pull players off the street to play for them, as we saw last week. Now, to what you last year. So to what you wrote, I actually kind of was reading it between the breaks. So Ben has written about just Adam Peters' draft history of really looking for those high-level athletic traits and that relative athletic score measure. And as I mentioned in the last segment, last hour, and with Ben, Sonny Styles not only graded high, he's the first and the highest ever since this started to take place in the late 80s for linebackers in general. But in writing this about Peters, give me the big kind of takeaways that you want people to take away from reading it.
By the way, Styles isn't even the most athletic guy in his own family. Is that his brother, who's a defensive back in this draft, but like later in the draft, he actually had a higher score than his brother did, which is nuts considering, like you just said, number one linebacker of all time. I mean, look, I said, it's kind of like what you were saying before. Like, this is I don't want to say this is moneyballing the situation, but this is trying to just take out any bias. Like, you ask me what I think they'll do. Well, I have to, my own thoughts have to creep in there to some degree, even if I don't want it to. So here it's just simply, okay, what has Adam Peters done? What's the common thread between the picks? He's had 13 picks. I think that's right, 13. And all but 2 had were eligible to get a RAS score because they did all the combine
picks.
drills and things. 14. Okay, so everybody except for Jaden Daniels and Johnny Newton got a score, and all those players were considered to be great in the RAS score. So I mean that's pretty notable. If you go back to the previous group, this is not about the Rivera drafts weren't particularly good, but it was much more even, or closer to even split, or there was a fair amount of guys who were not that top tier. So if you look at like the top 10 or 11 prospects on my list, not theirs, if you look at the top 10 or 11 prospects, and then you break it down like that, which ones score in the higher group, that gets you down to like 6 names. If you take out an offensive lineman, that gets you to 5. If you take out Arvell Reese, just because it feels like he'll be one of the first, 2 or 3 picks, that leaves you with 4 guys who, again, if we're just simply saying they're going to take the best athlete, at a position of need, of course, that, you're looking at Jeremiah Love, David Bailey, Sonny Styles, and Mansour Delane. And as I sit here, I'm thinking, you know what? I would probably have no issue with any of those guys at 7. And, that's not to say that they couldn't take Caleb Downs or Carnell Tate or Ruben Bain, who are not in that top category. But the evidence says that this is where Adam Peters is looking to go. And so if that's the case, then – and also, look, I mean, it's not just the draft. Look what they did in free agency.
Yeah, I know.
Right? I mean, the last 2 years we know they largely went with older guys, and that's a whole other thing. But this year it was younger, faster, and guys like Owe. I mean, Chenal was like the 3rd linebacker when he did his combine testing. So I guess they're going to have like 2 of the top 4 or 5 linebackers if they get Styles in the all-time RAS scores. So he has a type there as well, and that's why I think it's reasonable to think, okay, which of the guys fit that profile the best, and then you can get to that has nothing to do with are they a good player. You can be the world's greatest athlete and not know how to play football, but which of these guys makes the most sense from as a football player, and they already passed the bar for the athletic aspect.
Right. Ben did something in his Substack story today, and looking at, top RAS performers, looking at it in the context of Adam Peters and his picks, not only in the draft, but in free agency. But I'm not going to, this would be a reason to go read this story, people. He's got day 2 and day 3 potentials with high RAS scores. And I'm just going to mention one because I thought about this guy when I was watching him this year. Talon Green is the quarterback at Arkansas. He was, I think, at Boise before that. He's 6'6" and just a freak athletically. Now, throwing the football, there's kind of a big windup. There's some issues there. Not always the best decision maker, if I recall, from some of the games. He had an unbelievable game, I remember, against Ole Miss. Ole Miss was not very good defensively, but they were right there when Ole Miss was, ranked high, and they were right there with him. I'm trying to I'm going to guess that he probably accounted for like a Jaden Daniels type of game, in terms of passing and rushing yards. Hold on for 1 second.
Did I see that there was like some notion of like some teams may look to have him switch positions, and he's sort of balking at that?
Boy, he's a ridiculous athlete. Here it is. Against Ole Miss this past season, he threw for 305 and rushed for 115. So it's not exactly Jaden Daniels against Florida, but still, like and this guy is 6'6" too, and he looks 6'6", but he is just a freak. And when I saw you post his RAS score as the highest RAS score among quarterbacks, I thought to myself, I wonder if he were sitting there, late on day 3. I wonder if they'd think about it, because he could play the position similarly because he's an athlete to Jaden. I mean, I know they've got Marcus there, but, it's sort of a project. But that was interesting. You had some interesting guys as potential day 2 and day 3 guys. Is there anybody based off of this idea, which I think is a good one in trying to figure out what they're thinking, that you would completely write off their board at number 7?
You mean because they don't fit into the
not even
bucket?
Close, yeah.
I mean, Carnell Tate, based on the rat. Again, a lot of these guys, unfortunately, as we see more and more often, don't do a complete workout at the combine, and so we only have, of those 11 guys I mentioned, we only have RAS scores for 4. I took some data from NFL.com's individual draft previews to sort of fill in the blanks. But, Carnell Tate scores pretty low in a lot of the categories. I mean, he ran a 4.52, which, if you look at a lot of receivers who are very effective in this league, they also ran in similar
Jerry
ranges,
Rice.
But, yeah, exactly.
I think Jerry Rice's time, no kidding, was like he ran 4.5 something.
Yeah, no, for sure. It was definitely the game speed was very different than the time speed, and maybe that's the case here. He's also not like the biggest guy. Like he and Mekhi Lemon both are listed at 192 pounds, even though Tate is 3 inches taller at least. So for me, it just doesn't feel like where they would go. I'm not even factoring in the Brandon Aiyuk aspect of it all, where, I don't know, you would take another outside receiver if Aiyuk is in fact coming, But yeah, I don't know. I mean, if you listen to the people evaluate him, they love the player, polished route runner, all that, but they all say he just doesn't have the explosiveness, probably not going to get you a lot of yak. And it just feels like these are things that I'm assuming that they want to incorporate as best they can. So I kind of him, but from a pure need perspective, obviously it would make sense.
Man, I'll tell you what, that notion, like if you didn't know any of the numbers and any of the scores, and you just watched Carnell Tate play football at Ohio State, none of those things would enter your mind. None of those things. Speed wouldn't enter your mind. Yak ability wouldn't enter your mind. But they're projecting from him as a college player with, by the way, Jeremiah Smith on the other side of the field to what he would be in the NFL. I loved the player as a college player. I mean, he is a Justin Jefferson-esque route runner. He has great hands. And I think his yak is, I've heard that recently. I'm like, really? I saw him run away from people. I saw him catch hitches, break tackles, and I don't know. We'll see. But consistent with what you wrote about, that may be a guy that they're like, we love him, but we're afraid athletically he doesn't measure up. The Bain thing, to me, Reuben Bain, I've said this before, he almost just seems like a Dan Quinn type of player, but I have a feeling the arm length will just, he's off the board for somebody like Peters. Do you agree?
Yeah, that's part of my reservation with him as well. And then also, like, he's not, he weighs in like the 260s. If they are going to play more of a 3-4 base, he's not a guy you would have standing up, I wouldn't think.
He's more of a 4-3 DN, 3-point stance. You're right about that.
Yeah, so that's, but again, we still don't quite know exactly what they're going to run on either side of the ball. But it's based on the general thoughts, off of what Minnesota did. Yeah, then it doesn't seem like a fit schematically, and you're right on the arm length. All things being equal, it just doesn't seem like that would be a Peters guy for sure. But again, the power is obvious, the production was obvious. So, that's what's interesting about this draft to a degree, is that the premium position guys are not necessarily the better players. The better players are playing these non-premium positions, but even there, like Caleb Downs doesn't have crazy measurables in any capacity. So how do you weigh that? And that's why this is really so interesting, and why it could be a running back, an off-ball linebacker as their first pick, even though in almost any other year that would seem very unlikely.
All right. Do you know what the internet says about Jerry Rice's 40 time in 1985 at whatever the combine was then? It says 4.71. Now, it also says that there were disputes and a belief that it wasn't timed properly and that it was closer to the 4.55, 4.59 range, so almost 4.6. Still, I mean, the all-time don't watch what he does in his underwear. Watch what he does in full uniform. All right. What else? Anything happen here news related in the last 24 hours?
I don't know if this is news, but I put this out there this morning that I was told that Jaden Daniels is out in LA now working with, among others, Terry McLaurin, De'Ami Brown, Rashad White. So, these things happen every offseason, and, I'm sure it warms Dan Quinn's heart to see the guys getting together. And I always think it's, sometimes I think these things can be for show, but I don't think that's the case with these guys. So, it's always good to see them, getting together and working on their craft, incorporating new guys as well. But obviously they already played with De'Ami, and I think Jade knows Rashad pretty well. So there's not as much there. I don't know if there's other players there, but those are the ones I heard. So, after last year where, Terry missed everything, he and Jaden could have done these things, but in terms of just getting on the same page and, it's good to see that is happening, off the bat. And, there you go.
Last one. Does pretty much everybody around the league assume that Brandon Aiyuk will eventually at some point in June, July, or August end up in Washington based on, the people that you talk to, the people that you read, the people who you follow? It seems to me like there is a foregone conclusion that people have in their minds about where Aiyuk plays next year.
Yeah, I mean, there's zero rumors or buzz about any other team getting involved. I know we've all been like, come on, San Fran, just cut him. Nobody's trading for this contract. I had on Matt Barrows, who I think you've probably had on before. He covers the 49ers for The Athletic, and he and I were talking out in this league meeting that we just talked yesterday on my podcast. And, he's like, look, the reality probably would be that the Niners and the Brandon Aiyuk camp would basically tear up the contract that exists, do another one, then do a sign and trade, essentially, that kind of deal. So that would make a little more sense in terms of San Fran holding out for a 7th round pick or something, because this is going to be the contract you're going to give him anyway. Then what's the big deal, I guess. But beyond that, beyond San Francisco being in no rush, there's literally no other buzz out there. And again, that he walked away or is blowing up his massive contract, that he signed not long ago. Boy, if he really wants to play with Jaden Daniels that bad, it's just hard to imagine he would agree to go anywhere else if he's going to take far less money. So, yeah, I don't know of any other scenario that anybody has talked about. Again, is it 100% he comes here? I mean, no, but I haven't heard of any other scenario for him out there.
Yeah, I mean, I think, one of the things I've tried to emphasize, and I'll do it again right here, for those that haven't followed this super closely, what Brandon Aiyuk did is literally totally unique. It's unprecedented to walk away from between $30 and $40 million of contract money that was guaranteed that he could have easily gotten for minimal effort, even if he stayed hurt. And the fact that he walked away from that by going AWOL and not, submitting to whatever medical they needed twice a month, and then didn't even fight it, and that the NFLPA hasn't fought the voided guarantees, is unprecedented. And so there's a judgment issue there that I'm sure teams are wrestling with. And the other thing I learned, I don't think I've shared this. I read it. It's out there somewhere, and I forget where I got it. But the 49ers literally do not owe Brandon Aiyuk anything until there's some sort of team roster bonus due on September 1st. So if they're playing the petty vindictive route the whole way, they don't have to do anything until August 31st. And Kyle made it very clear. We're not doing, other teams any favors if we don't have to. And the favor being, why would we let him sign with somebody and have a complete off season against maybe a team that we'll have to play next year? So if they play this whole thing out and they don't care how, some people perceive what they're doing to be, it could be August 31st before he becomes available. That would be nuts. You there? Did we lose Ben?
No, I'm here. Sorry, Kevin. I hit the mute button by mistake.
Yeah, well, I'm now really upset what I missed when you had me muted.
No, nothing. After, of course, again, last year, Terry misses everything, OTAs, minicamp, training camp. So you're like, okay, that's, it had to affect things to some degree, right? Not even talking about him getting injured, but just that. Well, at least Terry had played with Jaden, of course, the year before and had great success. Aiyuk hasn't played with Jaden since 2019. That doesn't count. Like, they may know each other, they may know what kind of music they want to listen to, but they or how they want their steak done, but they don't. That's a completely different deal. He doesn't know the offense.
Yeah.
So this would be like, okay, from Washington's perspective, let's just say they go through the draft, they do whatever they do, they do consider Aiyuk, they don't, whatever. At some point, I would think you have to say, hey, if you're not here if this isn't getting done by, I don't know, if it's mini camp or the start of training camp, but you'd like to think it'd be sooner than that, what are we doing here? Especially, again, for the risk. We all get the upside, but the upside only works if he's ready to go. And, look, he also hasn't played football in over a year now. because of the injury. So, yeah, to me, I don't know if there's a deadline, but you would have to think that Washington would be like, let's get going here.
It's been a year and a half since he's played football. I mean, you got to go back to early in the 24 season when he got hurt. All right. Thanks. Appreciate it. Have a good weekend.
Yeah, man. You too, Sam.
Ben Standig, everybody. Speaking of Brandon Aiyuk, one of his trainers is TJ Houshmandzadeh, a trainer for Brandon Aiyuk. I think he is.
He's been described as a wide receiver coach, like, for him. So yeah, a trainer would probably be the apt thing to say.
So somebody who's been working with Brandon Aiyuk for a while, former NFL wide receiver, man, publicly, he's not necessarily super fond of him. You'll hear what he said about his client, I guess, Brandon Aiyuk, next. TJ Houshmandzadeh, former NFL wide receiver, played for the Bengals. I think he had a big game against us one year. I'm going to say it was 2012. Griffin's first home game when he was with the Bengals. It may have been a different game. Maybe it was A.J. Green who had a great game in that particular game. I just remember RG3 running triple option in his first home game in 2012. You know, the fake to the back, and then he's got a pitch back. So he's running down the line with somebody to pitch to, and he kept a couple of them, and even when he pitched it, he got hit pretty hard. Anyway, TJ Houshmandzadeh has been working with Brandon Aiyuk as his trainer, as his, guru. And he was on a podcast yesterday and had some interesting words to say about his client, Brandon Aiyuk. Who's the other guy that he's having the conversation with? Do you know, Max?
I'm not 100% sure.
Okay.
I can have it by the end of this clip, though.
It's fine. Let's play it. It's a little bit long, but you're going to get the gist here of what somebody who knows him very well thinks of the risk a team would be taking in signing him.
At my training session, literally sat in the parking lot arguing with people about this. And if they're watching, they know who people are. They all players, right? And we're discussing this. He really can play anywhere. Anybody should want him on the team. But, and the discussion was yesterday, at what cost? Because we had somebody saying a crazy amount of money that he was going to get. And I said, if anybody gives him a crazy amount of money, they should be fired tomorrow.
Yeah.
No owner is going to allow a general manager to pay BA that type of money the way he just acted in San Francisco. Nobody is doing that. And so if you want to play for $5 million and maybe 3 to 4 in incentives, we gonna take you. If you think you getting $1 more than that, somebody else, y'all got this. Because if I'm a general manager, I can't risk my livelihood and my job for you after what you just showed us. I can't do that. And so, talented, yep. Can he run? Can he catch? Is he quick? Is he a good player? Yep. Can he help your team? Yep. Can I trust him? I don't know.
If he does go to Washington, T, my question then is both how good can he make Washington, and is he wide receiver 1?
Oh, he's
because they got Scary Terry out there.
He's wide receiver 1.
Really?
Yeah. He can go. Like, it's crazy because when you see BA on TV, he looks like he's this big dude. He's not. He just has long arms. He can run. He's quick. He'll be the best receiver on that team. And he has that relationship with JD that they want to play together. But what's the number?
Yeah.
I think that's going to be, to me, is he realistic about what he's going to get? Is the team going to feel like they're disrespecting him by the offer that they offer?
Yeah.
And so...
So what you're saying is crazy then, because is there a better combination in the NFC than BA, Scary Terry,
Yes.
Jaden Daniels?
Yes.
Wait, so he was saying yes, there is a better combination?
Yeah. So the other people on the podcast, they bring up after this clip. I can kind of hit Control Z here and we can continue it if we want. But they talk about just having the Eagles and the Cowboys above them, a discussion between Jaden versus Dak. What do you say? Where do you fall on that? And to everybody, like everyone's gonna have their own opinion about that. But BA adding to the wide receiver core, what do you think how do you think it would look?
Yeah, I mean, he nailed it on how cautious you have to be,
of course,
from a commitment standpoint. No one's giving this guy a lot of guaranteed money. It's just not going to happen. I mean, I say that, and there are always teams out there that will do some things out of desperation and out of belief that they're going to be the ones that will be able to turn it around and have a great relationship with him. So he's 100% right about that. And then I know this upsets so many of you, but if you get the Brandon Aiyuk from 2023, he's the best receiver on the team. He was better than Terry McLaurin and has been better than Terry McLaurin at any point. But I'm not saying Terry isn't good. Stop. I can already hear it right now. I can already see, what my Twitter notifications are going to look like. I like Terry McLaurin a lot. I think he's a really good receiver. He's a number one receiver. Aiyuk is a definite number one. And he creates much more separation as a route runner and with his speed. But the two of them together, okay, let's think about the pairings for a moment. Obviously, CeeDee Lamb and Pickens, assuming Pickens plays, that's number one in the division. That's ahead of, is A.J. Brown going to even be an Eagle? We don't even know that. I think, would you take Lamb and Pickens above Smith and A.J. Brown?
At this point, yeah.
I think so, too.
There's too much.
Pickens was outstanding last year, except in that one game where he just
gave it away.
Yeah.
Lost interest.
That's in the division. Number one overall, I don't want to forget this, is Chase and Higgins. That's your number one pairing in the NFL, right? Nobody's close to Chase and Higgins. Maybe it's Lamb and Pickens next.
It might be.
And then Brown and Smith are up there. Nakua and Devontae Adams. Right? I'm just going through these standings here, looking at the team, so I don't forget anybody. Amon-Ra and Jamison Williams. Jefferson and Addison. Addison's really good. He just gets in trouble a lot.
Yeah.
Huh?
Say if he can be on the field, yeah, absolutely. But he gets in trouble a little bit too much.
He gets in trouble a little bit. But Terry and Aiyuk, if you had the Aiyuk of 2023, is a really, really good combo. It's top 10. It would certainly be considered a top 10 duo in the league. I think it would. Who are we forgetting? What, by the way, a Mike Evans, Brandon Aiyuk would be pretty impressive in San Francisco, but we know he's not playing there anymore. Just looking down the standings. I don't know. I think we hit the majors.
Collins.
Who?
Tank Dell and Nico Collins, but Tank Dell's been, had that horrifying knee injury.
Yeah. No more Hill and Waddle.
Yeah.
Man, Nakua and Adams. Whew. Higgins, Chase, Brown, Smith, Pickens, Lamb. Amon-Ra, look, Amon-Ra and just everything else they have, Laporta, Jamison Williams, Jahmyr Gibbs, they're still such an explosive, playmaking position lineup offensively. Yeah. No. Who's the other receiver? Rashid Shaheed's back.
Rashid Shaheed and
Kupp's back.
JSN and Cooper Kupp.
Yeah, I don't know. I honestly, an Aiyuk-Terry pairing would certainly rival that. It'd be top 10-ish. It would be top 10-ish. Where did DJ Moore get traded to? Why am
Buffalo.
I blanking? Buffalo. Because Moore and what they have in Chicago as a whole group is interesting. The guy, we had Dante Whitner on the show a few weeks ago. He does a 49ers podcast, former NFL player. He basically said the exact same thing that Hushmanzada said, which is this has got to be a prove-it deal. You cannot go into anything other than that with this guy because he just did something that is as big red flag as you get. All he had to do was show up in the building a couple of times a month and get a look-see on his knee. And he wouldn't have given up between $30 and $40 million in guaranteed money. And he didn't, and therefore they voided it, and nobody's fighting it because apparently it was so egregious in terms of, violating the contract in the terms of his contract. That's one of those. How old's Brandon Aiyuk? 28 years old. He's got to be, right?
I want to say 28.
That is one of those things. I'm telling you, man, this dude in 20 years, probably just 10 years, will look back and say, I did what? All I had to do was show up in the building twice a month to get my knee examined? I've seen the numbers posted. It's between 30 and 40 million. I think Hushmanzada said 40. Whatever it is, it's a lot of money. He just threw it away. Threw it away. It was guaranteed for injury. You don't do that. I'd love to see him, though, the way he played in 23 opposite Terry with Jaden and Chig. And maybe, for some of you, maybe Jeremiah Love. I wouldn't mind seeing Jeremiah Love either. I think he's a really good player. Just wouldn't take him 7. All right, Final Four discussion and a smell test pick or 2 for the Final Four when we come back. Kevin Sheehan, Show, the Team 980 and the team980.com.
Caravan for Mullins. Long 3. Oh, he got it. for Mullins. Long three. Oh, he got it. He hit the long three-pointer from the logo with 0.3 of a second left to go. UConn has taken the lead.
I mean, we have two excellent Final Four games. I mean, the point spreads tell you how competitive they are expected to be. UConn and Illinois in the first game, Michigan and Arizona in the nightcap. Illinois is a 2-point favorite in the first game, and then Michigan is a 1.5-point favorite in the second game. I mean, these are two really, really good basketball games following, I thought, a really compelling Sweet 16, Elite 8, weekend of games. Some high-quality basketball for sure. And even if the UConn-Duke game wasn't high quality throughout or, super compelling because it wasn't back and forth, the ending, was certainly one of the more memorable endings we've ever seen. So taking each one of these games, and I'll end with a smell test here momentarily, but I mean, I kind of like Illinois in the first one. The interesting thing, and I saw a lot more of Illinois during the regular season than I did UConn, just in part because they're a Big Ten team and they played Maryland. Maryland actually played them very close in the season finale. But there was a point during the season where I was like, Illinois is not a Final Four team. They don't defend well enough. And they didn't defend very well during the regular season. But man, has that changed in the tournament. They were outstanding against VCU, held them to 55. Houston, best defense they've played all year, holding Houston to 55. And then they did the same thing to Iowa, pulling away late in a 71-59 win over Iowa. For the Illini, no one's questioned their offense all year long. They're one of the most efficient KenPom offenses in college basketball history, or since KenPom started to measure. The defense is what has them in the Final Four. As Keaton Wagler is as well a major reason they're in the Final Four. There were times watching him towards the end of the year. I saw his 46, in Mackey against Purdue. It was incredible. But I'm like, this guy's not a top 10 pick. Not now anyway. Watching him in the tournament, I mean, he is a legit 6'6", tempo controlling, scoring, passing point guard. He is excellent in the pick and roll, and they seek it out, especially against switching teams. They'll find the right matchup, and then he creates, and he's got a lot of help and a lot of size. UConn, they're the team that probably nobody expected to be here, but it's a Hurley team, and they overachieved, and they defended well, and they turned Duke over in the second half, and they do have an option in Reed Jr. in the post. Like, to me, this is a game in which, Illinois' defense, if it's the same level it's been, and you get a UConn team shooting as poorly as they did for the first 30 minutes of the game, I think Illinois wins. I think UConn's going to have to hit an unusually high number or percentage of threes to win it. I like Illinois in the first game. In the second game, this is an unbelievable matchup. I mean, these are the two best teams. I think Purdue was really close in the draw. It's in terms of like the analytics, the matchup of offense and defense, efficiency, etc. It's one of the highest quality, highest rated analytics matchups in a long time. These are two of the better teams college basketball has seen in a long time per a lot of the advanced metrics. This is real easy for me. Michigan's got to stop Arizona from getting to the rim, and that is hard to do. Arizona doesn't shoot threes. It's not what they do. Can they? Yeah, but it's not what they do. With Pete and Krivas and Bradley and Burries, their freshman point guard, and Ivan Karchenikov, they drive it, and they can't be stopped. They're constantly going downhill. Michigan's a hell of a defensive team, but if Arizona's playing this game at the rim and rebounding, I like Arizona. I really do. Michigan would have to really shoot it well from three. I think this is, it's weird that Michigan's favored to me, and I thought it would be Arizona would be favored, and the public is playing Arizona, but not by a big enough margin for me to give out Michigan. I like Arizona to win the game. I like an Arizona-Illinois final. But, man, both of these games could go either way, and they're going to be a lot of fun to watch. All right, smell test to end the show. 17-13 for the tournament. It was at 17-9, and then lost 4 straight games Saturday with Purdue, and then 3 bets on Sunday. I had Duke laying the points. I had Tennessee plus the points. Not close on that one. And then had the under in the Duke game as well. So I don't like either side. It doesn't fit the smell test criteria. The action is a little bit leaned in Connecticut's favor, a little bit in Arizona's favor, not enough to make either Michigan or Illinois a pick. But both totals are being played over the total in a pretty significant way. So give me under 140 in the Illinois-UConn game and under 157.5 in the Michigan-Arizona game. The 2 unders are the plays. All right, that's it for the show. Thanks to Ben for coming on. Thanks to all of you who called. Thanks to Max and Brian. Have a good weekend. Chris Russell's next.